Hi, this is Paula from CHNE. Here's a weekly segment with Cape Breton Council MP Mike Kelloway. Today, we talk about the reopening of the economy and access to personal protective equipment for both businesses and consumers. Here's our conversation. I wanted to ask you about reopening. The province has announced that it's going to start on April 5th. So I wanted to get your opinion. Do you think that Riding is ready for that?
Yeah, I think so. I think we're with some provisions though. Um, the premier and Dr. Strang have put forth the plan for the province, and obviously our riding is a part of the province. I think that there's some things that need to go hand in hand with that. That is around the social distancing aspect still. And the wearing of masks. Now, masks are not 100% foolproof. We know that, but I think they enable people to take precautions and, in some ways, limit the impact of COVID and the transmission of COVID. And I really think when it comes to gloves, masks, and things of that nature, that has to go hand in hand with this. So you've seen on CNN or MSNBC, video of a couple of weeks ago of a pool in the Ozarks and in upstate New York, and there was like hundreds of people in a pool. I know we're not going to get to that point, but we still have to adhere to the science, and the science is, the masks, the gloves. I know it is problematic for many, and I know I have a mask and it falls down. I put it back up. I'm tightening it up. It's, my glasses are fogging, but it's absolutely essential that we stick to those particular guidelines. So yes, the opening up is happening. That's important. So are we ready? The question is, I think we are ready, but we have to be ready with the right mindset and the right practices in play. And that's the protective wear. For example, in the past 3 weeks, we've been looking at if the province does open up, well, our office will open up. So what does that look like? So we've been going through a lot of different scenarios of the plexiglass, of taking appointments so we can, know when people are coming in, and we can clean and disinfect as we go throughout the day, and order gloves and masks and things of that nature. So we're going back to normal, but it's not quite normal in the sense of we're still in this. We're still in this. On the health committee, for example, that I'm on, we've interviewed people who are experts in the field, researchers, physicians, and they talk about a second wave in the fall and potentially a third wave. So this work that we've done to date, the social distancing, has played a monumental role in this being. I don't want to use the word "not as bad as we thought," but it's helped a great deal. So we got to keep that up. So in the grocery stores, in restaurants, when the rules will be, I think, 5 to 10 per restaurant or whatever the case may be, that we have to adhere to that. We have to, and the mask, by the way, is not necessarily just for me. But if I meet with you, it's for you too, and it's for your family. So yes, in terms of Dr. Strang and the premier putting forth this plan, but we also have now to play a role in it. That's the business community, not-for-profit sector, you and me, with respect to the measures that science is asking us to take.
And in terms of access to PPE, for example, I know that's provincial, but how can the federal government support the province and businesses in providing what they need?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's been ongoing since the beginning days of COVID. So I forget the amount of gloves, PPE that we've ordered, but it's significant, coming from all walks of life in terms of areas within the world and within Canada. So, for example, ventilators was a big thing in the beginning part of this. And, Canada, the government of Canada is working actually with the Cape Brettoner, the Nobel laureate Art McDonald and his company, Vexos, to manufacture 10,000 more additional ventilators. And then we're looking at companies throughout Canada that are developing PPE, gloves, masks, things of that nature. We even have a couple of local businesses that are looking at how do they transform their distillery to an operation that could enable it to create hand sanitizer. So the government of Canada, with Minister of Procurement, the Minister of Health, meets on a regular basis with their counterparts in each of the provinces to ascertain what is needed, how much is needed. And I think that's going well. But now, as we open up, and not all provinces are the same right now. If you look at, you see Ontario and they have their challenges. Quebec, they have their challenges. It's in Montreal, and then you have the rural areas that are less so. But to use a baseball analogy for your viewers out there, a baseball game is normally, it is 9 innings. It can go extra innings, but experts are saying that we're in the 4th, 5th inning of this pandemic. So, which tells me that we're opening up the economy, which is good, but we also need to be smart and strategic, and not just read what the recommendations are, but practice them. I have my mask. It's a reusable mask, and I use it when I go out now. Not when I jog, because that's just me, and I jog around the neighborhood. I don't want to jog around with a mask. It's a little complicated. But these are the measures. The issue of education and consistent education, a lot of times, whether it's a crisis or not a crisis, something will happen, we learn about it, and then we fall into our old patterns. It's human nature. I do it. But we have to now change reframing this to the gloves, the masks, the washing of the hands, the coughing into all that stuff that we talked about in the early part of this pandemic is just as important then or now as it was then. And so we need to constantly remind people of this. It seems rudimentary, but it's not. And especially when we open up again, which we are, I think, on the 5th or 6th, and some on the 1st.
Yeah, but a lot of it is not just people deciding to do it, it's also access. If you go to the pharmacy, you can't always find gloves or masks if you want to buy them.
I guess the central premise of your question is around access. So the federal government, working with the provincial governments, is working diligently to produce those PPE that everyone needs. And then there are certain things that you don't require PPE, like the social distancing aspect. So if you're in the grocery store, for example, and you walk right by someone and it's like 2 feet away, that's not social distancing, right? And I know it's a pain in the derriere. Trust me, I know it's sometimes easy to forget. But there's certain things we can do as a society. Then there's certain things we need to do as a government and governments. And that is to ensure that the people have access, to your point. Access in urban Canada and rural Canada, all parts of Canada, coast to coast to coast. And that's going to be the consistent message, I think, as we open up, is access to the protective gear that we need to ensure that we do our best to mitigate the virus. And so that will be the challenge, and it is a challenge for all governments, because the other thing too, and why we need to go inward and look at what we can do as a country to produce those things more than we have in the past, is that most countries are going through this. So everybody's in the market looking for PPE and all the different variations of PPE. So that's why when we look at a car manufacturing plant in Oshawa now producing, assisting to produce ventilators, or Protocase in Cape Breton playing a role with other distributors to manufacture ventilators, or Stanfield's in Truro, upping their game in terms of masks. This is where the country needs to come together, and it has. But we need to remember that this is a baseball game. We're in the 4th or 5th inning. There's 4 more innings to go, and we need to continually recognize that we can't let up on this. Even when we open up businesses, we open up massage therapy and barbershops and things of that nature, restaurants. We consistently need to remind ourselves. And that's a role of government, and that's a role of public health, but it's also the role of community, and for community to recognize that it plays a role, and it has. I look at the calls that I get from all over this riding, and I get a lot of them around updates. So I have some folks in Grand Etang, for example, that will give me an update on how things are going there, or Mabu, or the CBRM, Richmond County, Antigonish, Guysborough. And a lot of people, most people are following through. But we need to have, all people and to be pushing in the same direction. And that can be sometimes arduous. It can be somewhat challenging. But again, we are living in a time, who would have thought in a million years that you and I right now would be talking about a pandemic in the world in the 21st century? So we have to prepare even more. So what I'm saying is we can't let up. We can't take our eye off the ball. Even when it's warm, it's going to be 30 degrees Celsius in most spots in Cape Breton and northeastern Nova Scotia today. We need to enjoy it. We need to embrace the day, but we also need to be smart about how we do it.
You can send us your questions for my Kelloway at chne.television@gmail.com. Thanks for watching.